What's up, ladies and gentlemen? NoZoupForYou here, and today we're going to talk about Vermont. I'm not talking about the state of Vermont. I'm talking about the USS Vermont, the Tier 10 USN battleship. Part of the split. However, the Vermont is now part of the actual line. The split goes out to Montana, which includes some faster battleships. So I'm going to go over the stats of this ship, then I'm going to go into the important stuff. The pros, the cons, and whether I think it's worth your time to grind to the ship. And of course, that's just an opinion, because ultimately, the decision is up to you. I'm not going to tell you should grind for it or not, because that's not what I do. I just give you the facts and help you to make a decision for yourselves. So, let's go over some stats of this giant, thick, fatty, fat ship. And it is fat. I mean, the thing is wide. It's got an odd look to it. I'm still trying to get used to the look. The three funnels, I mean, it almost has a Dunkirk booty or some kind of French ship. I don't know. It is a weird looking ship. I don't know. It's strange. Very, very strange. And, you know, that alone might throw some people off and dissuade them from trying to grind for this ship. But we're not going to evaluate this ship based on looks, because looks do nothing for you. I mean, it might throw you off while you're playing, but I doubt it. So survivability, you got 102,800 hit points and a torpedo protection damage reduction of 40%, which is very generous. This ship can take a beating, which is a good thing because of its maneuverability, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I don't feel like I'm taking more damage than I should, unless I'm playing against a Kremlin. That's the only ship I came across at Tier 10 that could pretty much penetrate Citadel me from any angle. And, you know, we're just going to throw that out as an outlier because Kremlin's Kremlin and it's Russian. And, you know, there's probably some kind of coding in here that says if a Russian ship fires at you, just self-detonate. I'm kidding there. Russian bias, right? But it stands up well against all the other battleships, and I almost feel that when I'm broadside, I take less damage than if I'm angled. And no, don't take that to heart, because that is absolutely not what you want to do. But what I'm trying to say is its Citadel protection is very, very nice. I mean, the ship can take some damage. Moving on to the artillery, though, and this is the very interesting part. You've got some giant honking guns, 457 millimeters, and you've got 12 of those. And they shoot pretty far at 24.5 kilometers. And they're moderately accurate. I wouldn't say they're going to win any competitions, but they're pretty accurate. I mean, they get the job done. Of course, the closer you get to the ship, the more likely you are to absolutely slaughter them, which these guns can do. These guns can really put the hurt on other ships, and I would say they're nice. Now, of course, the downside is going to be in the reload of these guns, and I think we all know about those. Mine's 35.2 seconds, and of course, I'm running a captain, and, you know, I've got all the other things on the ship that decrease ammo right now, so 35.2 seconds is not the fastest in the world, also not the slowest, but any faster, and these guns could just really be a tad strong. AP shell velocity, you're looking at a very lethargic 732 meters per second. So really keep that in account when you're firing at other ships. HE fires a little faster at 800 meters per second, but they're just very slow firing guns in every single respect. Now, another interesting tidbit is your HE chance of causing fire is 43%. So I really haven't tried playing this ship as an HE gunboat, but I might give it a try just for the sake of it and see if it has a little bit of Conqueror-esque abilities to it. But I can't, it's hard to do that in a battleship. I just don't feel that, unless you're in a Conqueror or a Thunderer, HE is really worth the time, because that's not what you play a battleship for, especially when you have guns as big as that. So artillery, while you have slow reload, it's not lacking whatsoever. Moving on to AA defense, very stout, very nice. You've got 21 Bofors on your ship, which probably make the bulk of why this ship is so powerful. as far as AA is concerned. You start off at 91, but you can easily boost that upwards. Yeah, I would say that few aircraft carriers, if any, are going to want to send everything your way, because you are very effective at swatting them down, especially if you add fighters as opposed to spotting aircraft, which I would recommend, because at 25 kilometers, any extra distance is not really going to do much for you. It's really just not. So I would go with the fighters and add an extra layer of protection, which is very, very nice. So this ship is not lacking anything at all in AA defense. Maneuverability. Now this is this is the big con to this ship. Your maximum speed is 24.2 knots, and that's with Sierra mics. Turning circle radius 850 meters. Rudder shift time 19.1 seconds. In short, this ship is a giant, lumbering walrus. It's the Exxon Valdez of the game. It is just slow, cantankerous, and not fun to move around the map. You really have to plan ahead where you want to be, because once you get there, you're really not going anywhere else. If you get to one side of the map and something happens on the other side of the map, you're not going to get there before the round's over, especially in Tier 10 matches. So please keep that in mind. You really have to plan in advance. And if you overextend in this ship and run into a problem, you're not getting out of that problem most likely. You'll survive a little bit on account of your good armor and your hit pool, but you know, if you come across like two Smolensks behind an island and you're within 10 kilometers of them, you're probably not going to get out unless a miracle happens. It's just that cumbersome to navigate with this ship. But that being said, I would say its maneuverability is its weak point. I'm not going to say it's its only weak point, and it is a fairly huge weak point, but it's not a deal breaker for this ship whatsoever. Concealment, detectability range by sea when you have everything you can possibly throw at this ship put on, 14.2 kilometers. Fitting of its size, it is a big ship. It's gigantic. It can be spotted from the moon. It's Vermont, and it's pretty much the size of Vermont, which, even though it's a smaller state, it's still giant. So, yes, you've got some pretty good stats on this ship. Now, obviously, kind of went over pros and cons during that talk. Just to reiterate, your pros, definitely your guns. Your guns are just really, really hard-hitting. I think you all are going to be impressed by the guns. Even at 35 seconds, it's slow, but it doesn't feel that bad. I know we made a lot of talk about that in the past, and especially when it was like 40 seconds and before you put everything on it. I mean, it is slow, but those guns hit hard, and you've got a lot of them. So I think a lot of players are going to like it for these guns. Also, the anti-aircraft capability. Aircraft carriers, they're not going to want to mess with you. And if they do, you're really going to take a dent out of them. And hey, that's extra XP, right? I mean, even if you have a mediocre round and shoot down 25 or 30 airplanes, you're going to turn out having a good round and come close to the top of the leaderboard with XP. So, AA defense, another thing to like. Also, another thing to like, the hit pool, your armor, you can take a beating so long as you don't overextend. Cons, obviously your maneuverability is horrible. And it has to be that way with this ship, because if you could speed across the map, if you could get out of tricky situations quick enough, it would make this ship just a little too strong. And really, right now, that's the biggest con I can think of, aside from how the ship looks, which it's just not... I won't say it's not pleasing to the eye, but it's not your typical USN battleship. It throws you off. It's like someone took a Tennessee and clone stamped it. Clone stamped it lengthwise. That's exactly what it looks like. It's just very odd. Though I guess there is historical basis for this design. It's just weird to look at, and if you're used to the USN battleship line, this is going to kind of throw you off. So overall, not horrible. Now, do I think it's worth grinding to? And that's going to be the big decision for a lot of you out there. It's not a fun grind. Well, let me rephrase that. Because the split happens, and then you've got some ships that just aren't fun. Obviously, you're not grinding all 10 tiers. And hopefully you manage to pick up a Minnesota somehow to make things a lot easier for you. And if you do have a Minnesota, I would even say I would not be adverse to free XPing past it. So the grind is just not fun. I don't think the ships before this are really fitting of the USN battleship line. I know some of you have had success with the Minnesota and other ships, but for me, they just play so differently than the other USN battleships, and I don't feel that they were a worthy successor. That being said, though, if you can get to the Vermont quickly, if you can fast track to it, if you do have that Minnesota and some free XP, or you already accrued that XP, no, it's not a bad battleship. It's not a bad tier 10 ship. And I think over time I've warmed up to this ship. I wasn't that really impressed by it before, but playing it some more, I see a lot of merits to it. I can see a lot of things to like about this ship. I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but you do have some really big guns and a really generous hit pool with some generous AA, and I think some players will like that. I think a lot of players will. So ultimately, fortunately, it's a short grind if you've already grinded up to tier 10 in the USN battleship line. You only have to go through, what, 4 ships or so. You might even have less if you got lucky during the USN battleship arc and managed to get the Minnesota. So that alone makes it worth it. I don't think you'll be displeased with it. The only thing that holds this ship back, and might for many players, is its maneuverability. But it has to have some glaring weakness on account of its guns, which are just really, really nice. So yeah, that is the Vermont in a nutshell. I'm glad I got the elephant in the room addressed, because I know a lot of you are very interested in this ship, just on account of its guns. So, super thick clone stamp Tennessee, not bad at all. I mean, not the most enjoyable, but I think some players will like this ship. I think a lot of players will, and I don't think it's horrible at all. I think it's a decent entry for the tech tree split. I mean, it keeps to what the split is. It follows the tradition of the ships before it. So there it is. I want to know your thoughts, though, especially if you already have it, what you think of the ship. And I will catch you all later. Take it easy. Zoop out.